So let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. Because for them, this isn't just another offseason. Nope, this is a massive tipping point. The front office is standing at a critical crossroads, making these enormous gambles, where honestly every single move they make could be the one that saves them, or it could sink the entire franchise for years. Today on NFL Nexus, we are going to break down this incredibly high-stakes strategy, the huge risks they're taking, and what it all means for a leadership team that truly has its back against the wall.
And hey, before we really dive in, if this is the kind of deep NFL breakdown you're into, do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what we've got coming up next. Your support really means the world. All right, let's get into the Colts.
Okay, so here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with the crisis that kind of forced their hand in the first place. Then we'll look at the big move they made to lock down their quarterback. After that, we're diving into the huge, glaring problem they have with their pass rush and the one guy they seem to be targeting, Jonathan Greenard. Then we'll really dig into the ultimate gamble this all represents, and finally, we'll talk about whose jobs are really on the line this season.
All right, first things first. To really get why the Colts front office is in such a pressure cooker right now, you have to understand the sheer scale of the mess they're in. This isn't just a simple roster shuffle, a few guys in, a few guys out. We are talking about the fallout from a major exodus of veteran talent that has left this roster with some absolutely massive, gaping holes.
Our source material over at Yardbarker put it perfectly, and it really just sums up the whole situation. They said Indianapolis is in a massive pinch. I mean, just think about that phrase. It's the perfect description for where general manager Chris Ballard and head coach Shane Steichen find themselves right now. They're completely backed into a corner, with very few easy ways out, and the clock is definitely ticking.
And this crisis, man, it becomes crystal clear when you look at who actually walked out the door. And listen, we are not talking about rotational guys or depth pieces here. Kwity Paye and Samson Ebukam. That's your entire starting edge-rushing duo from last season, just gone. Michael Pittman Jr., he wasn't just another receiver, he was the absolute cornerstone of their entire passing game. And Zaire Franklin, he was a key linebacker and a huge leader in that locker room. Losing that much proven talent at such critical spots all at once, yeah, that puts you in a serious bind.
So, with the roster basically hemorrhaging talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, what do you do first? Well, for Chris Ballard, job number one, without a single doubt, had to be stabilizing the offense. Before you can even think about plugging all those other holes, you have to lock down the single most important position on the field. You have to prevent a total meltdown on that side of the ball.
But of course, it wasn't going to be that easy. The huge challenge was getting a new deal done with their veteran quarterback, Daniel Jones. And the massive wrench in the works, he was coming off a season-ending Achilles tear that he suffered back in December. Now, for any athlete, but especially for a quarterback who can move, that injury is an absolute nightmare. It just throws this giant cloud of doubt and uncertainty over everything, which made this a super high-risk negotiation right from the jump.
And if you look at the timeline here, you can really see just how delicate and careful this whole process was. So he gets hurt in December. Then, come early March, the Colts hit him with the transition tag. Now, what that does is it basically buys them time. It gives them the right to match any offer sheet Jones might have signed with another team. But the real moment of truth, the real turning point, that was about 3 months after his surgery. ESPN points out that this is a huge checkpoint for this kind of injury. And once the doctors from both sides, the teams and Jones's, gave the thumbs up, then and only then could they finally get a deal done.
And the contract they finally landed on, wow. It is a 2-year deal for a whopping $88 million. That is $44 million per year for a quarterback who is coming off one of the most devastating and scary injuries a player can have. This wasn't just them trying to keep a player. This was a massive, massive financial vote of confidence and an equally massive gamble on his ability to make a full recovery.
When you really think about it, though, this expensive deal was kind of a win-win for everybody involved. For Jones, he gets to avoid all the stress of moving, of learning a whole new system, all while he's trying to rehab. He gets to stay with the medical staff and the coaches he knows and trusts. That's huge. And for the Colts, they get to keep a guy who already knows their system inside and out, which is absolutely critical since he's going to miss most of the offseason program. They're betting he can just plug right back in without a learning curve once he's finally cleared to play.
Okay, so quarterback situation stabilized? Check. Now, the Colts could finally shift their full attention over to the defensive side of the ball. And remember those guys who left, Paye and Ebukam? Well, their departure didn't just create a hole, it created a 5-alarm fire. A full-blown mission-critical emergency that honestly threatens to undermine their entire 2026 season. And when I say mission-critical, I absolutely mean it. Our sources are all pointing to the exact same thing.
Fixing this pass rush isn't just on the to-do list, it is the list. It's essential. Because in today's pass-happy NFL, if you cannot get pressure on the opposing quarterback, your defense is toast. You just can't ask your secondary to cover forever. A pass rush is the engine of any modern defense, and right now the Colts' engine is, well, it's missing.
And man, when you actually look at who they have on the roster at edge rusher right now, it looks pretty grim. You've got Laiatu Latu, who has a ton of talent and a really high ceiling, but he's still a young guy, still developing. Behind him, it's questionable at best. Arden Key is a solid mid-tier rotational player, but he's not the kind of guy that offensive coordinators lose sleep over. And JT Tuimoloau? He has yet to record a single sack in his NFL career. This group is just not going to scare anybody.
So, here we are again, right back in that massive pinch. All the top-tier, game-changing edge rushers that were available in free agency, guys like Trey Hendrickson, they're already signed. They're gone, off the market. So what do? What's the only option left when you absolutely, positively have to find a proven guy who can come in and make an impact from day one? You've got to hit the trade market.
And it looks like all roads are leading directly to one guy, Minnesota Vikings defensive end and former Pro Bowler Jonathan Greenard. He really seems to represent the Colts' last best hope of acquiring a legitimate top-tier pass rusher this offseason. But, and this is a big but, landing him is going to come with a significant amount of risk.
Alec Lewis over at The Athletic really framed the whole situation perfectly. He points out that the financial part of the deal, while big, is something the Colts could handle. They've got the cap space. The real gut-wrenching part of this for a GM, the part that makes you stare at the ceiling at night, it's the draft pick. Giving up a day 2 pick, especially a coveted second-rounder, man, that is a steep, steep price to pay.
So let's really break down this Jonathan Greenard puzzle, because it is a tough one. On the one hand, the pros are incredibly enticing. This is a guy with a proven, elite track record, right? He's had 2 seasons with over 12 sacks. He immediately solves your single biggest problem. And even last year, in an injury-shortened season, he still racked up an incredible 47 QB pressures in only 12 games. The guy is disruptive, but the cons are just as scary. He only played in those 12 games because of a shoulder injury. His sack total plummeted all the way down to just 3.0, and then you have that incredibly high cost of a second or third round pick. It is the absolute definition of a high-risk, high-reward move.
And this is really where the gamble comes into full focus. You see, acquiring Jonathan Greenard isn't just about what he might do for you on the field. It's about the massive, monumental investment of both financial resources and incredibly precious draft capital that it would take from a team that really can't afford to get this wrong. Okay, let's talk about the money, because it's wild. According to Over the Cap, the Colts have about $26.6 million in available cap space. Greenard's 2026 cap hit alone is $22.15 million. You do the math. This one move would basically eat up all of their financial wiggle room for the entire season. No money left for in-season adjustments, no money for injury replacements, nothing.
And it's not just monopoly money on a salary cap sheet. We are talking about $19 million in actual cash that has to be paid to Greenard in 2026. That is a huge check for the team owner to sign for one single player, especially a guy who's coming off a recent injury and a down year in the sack department. It's a massive cash bet that he's going to bounce back to his old Pro Bowl form.
But for me, the real cost, the part that really hurts when you look at it, is the draft capital. The Colts are already without their 2026 first-round pick. They traded it away to get cornerback Sauce Gardner. So now, to potentially give up a second or maybe even a third-rounder for Greenard, that means for a GM like Chris Ballard, who has always built his teams through the draft, he'd be sacrificing 2 of his top 3 assets for veteran help. That is a massive philosophical shift. It's a classic all-in, win-now move, and it's absolutely mortgaging the future. So, when you see all these aggressive, high-risk moves stacking up, the huge contract for an injured quarterback, the potential blockbuster trade for a costly, recently injured defensive end, you have to look at all of it through one single, specific lens: pressure. Pure, intense, job-saving pressure. These are not moves happening in a vacuum. They are moves being made by a front office that knows it is running out of time.
And our source material from Yardbarker couldn't be more blunt about it. They say, and I quote, "With Ballard and Shane Steichen's jobs firmly on the line this year, it does not get any clearer than that. This is it. This is a make-or-break year. And that kind of pressure, that feeling of career survival, it can absolutely force a front office to make a deal like this one. As the source says, regardless of what it costs. The whole calculation shifts from long-term team building to short-term survival."
So it all comes down to this one ultimate question.
Are these just desperate moves from a front office that's been backed into a corner, mortgaging the team's future for one last shot? Or is this a bold, calculated risk that's actually going to pay off big, save their season, and ultimately save their jobs? Ballard and Steichen have pushed all of their chips to the center of the table. The only question now is, will it be enough? I would love to know what you think. Drop a comment below, and let's talk about it.
All right, that is our deep dive into the Colts' incredible high-stakes offseason gamble. Hey, if you enjoyed this kind of in-depth analysis, it would mean a lot if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to NFL Nexus so you don't miss our next one. And listen, a fantastic way to help support what we do here is by checking out our coloring books. They're actually really cool, perfect for fans of any age. You can find the link for those right down in the description. Thanks so much for watching.